if I ever leave this world alive. Well, thank you for the things you did in my life.
Morning, YouTube Pipe community. Wisdom Junkie. Look at my borrowing today with some McBaron Navy Flake. Doing a little bit of lunting today. Lunting is a term I've recently learned via a few of you. I figured why not? Join the crowd. It's a beautiful day, Arizona, January. And I figured what a better way than lunting than to introduce what I think is going to be my next sort of series of videos. Some of you may be interested in them, some of you maybe not. In either case, I'm going to do them anyway. I've talked a few times in past videos about my interest in Stoicism, ancient Greek and Roman philosophy. And I like it because it's unlike any other philosophy, in my opinion, in that it's really designed to be personal and applicable to your life. I mean, what I mean by that is you can read Plato, his Republic, but how much of that can you really apply to your life at work or at home, in traffic, so on and so forth? You know what I mean? I'm more interested in the applicable stuff. Some people are into Epicureanism, where they seek happiness. I'm into Stoicism, where I seek wisdom and virtue. I've decided to introduce this series of videos using the works of a guy I've talked about before, named Epictetus. And his work called the Enchiridion. Epictetus was born in Turkey, 50 AD. As a boy, he became a slave, a Roman slave. He was lame. He had problems with his legs and had a hard time walking. Some say his master did that to him. Well, eventually he gained his freedom and learned about Stoicism, Greek Stoic philosophy through his teacher named Sonius Rufus. He never wrote down any of his own stuff. He basically just taught it. He had a student who did teach, who did write it down. And he had two main pieces of work. First one's called the Discourses. I have that book. It's a longer book. And then there's this one, the Enchiridion. Look how small that is. See how reasonable that is? The Enchiridion is like the Cliff Notes for the Discourses. And the reason why I like this is this you can break it down pretty easily and do it in segments. It's easier to digest than contemplate. Let me show you what I mean. Before I get to that, I want to see if you can see the owl. It's just a small owl sitting on the bank up there. I don't know if you can see him. I'm going to try and approach. Perhaps it's fate. Providence has brought an owl into my life right now as I decide to talk about philosophy of Stoicism and wisdom. The owl represents wisdom. There he goes. If that's not a sign from Providence, I don't know what is. Anyway, let's talk about the book. Enchiridion, known as the handbook for life. Okay? Or the manual. You can see how it's broken down. Here's the one. This is pretty much the longest one, but then check it out. See how it's broken down into further sections? 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth. They're very easily digestible. Small bursts of wisdom delivered to you from 2,000 years ago. You know, kind of like the Bible and other pieces of work. So, today, I want to read a little bit from chapter 1. And we'll maybe kind of move through this throughout the course of this series. And it's funny because you can read the whole book, and everything this book says is basically summed up in the first line. Like, you could read the first line, shut off this video, and go on to something else and get the gist of the entire thing. Never watch me again or read another page. But I hope you stick with me. So, Stoicism 101. Of things, some are in our power and others are not. That's it. Have a nice day. You still with me? And he goes on to say what's in our power. In our power, our opinion. Our opinion is in our power. Our movement toward a thing and what we are striving to do. Desire. What we desire is in our power. And aversion. That is what we are averse to. We can control what we try to avoid. And in a word, whatever are in our own acts. Not in our power are our body. Our body's not in our power. We have no control over how our body is going to function or have a disease or sickness or anything like that. So why worry about it? You have no control over it anyway. Property, reputation, your offices. In a word, whatever not in our own acts. And the things in our power are by nature free, not subject to restraint or hindrance. But the things not in our power are weak, slavish, subject to restraint in the power of others. In other words, the biggest thing I get out of that line is, hey, the things that are not in our power are slavish. We can quickly become slaves to things that are not in our power. which I remember, property. We become slaves to our property. I mean, I did a little thing on Thoreau in his time at Walden, and one of the things that he says in there is, I had a couple pieces of some sort of rock that he had on his windowsill inside a small cabin, and he found that every single day he had to dust off those rocks, and he couldn't figure out why he was dusting off rocks, so he threw them, because he was become a slave to his things controlled him. He hated that. Same sort of concept, you know. Remember then that if you think the things which are by nature slavish to be free, and the things which are in the power of others to be your own, you will be hindered. You will lament, you will be disturbed, you will blame both gods and men. But if you think that only which is your own to be your own, and if you think that what is another's as it really is belongs to another, no man will ever compel you. No man will hinder you. You will never blame any man. You will accuse no man. You will do nothing involuntarily. No man will harm you. You will have no enemy. You will not suffer any harm. That is the power of understanding and applying in your life a deep knowledge about what you can control and what you cannot control. Are you with me so far? He goes on to say, straight away then practice thing to every harsh appearance. In other words, anything that appears to be hard or stressful or pisses you off, that you are an appearance only. Okay? A perception. You are not the matter in which you appear to be. Then examine it by the rules which you possess, and by this first and chiefly, whether it relates to the things which are in our power and to things which are not in our power. And if it relates to anything in which is not in our power, be ready to say that it does not concern you. Did you understand that? Things that piss you off in life, typically, examine them by the rules in which you possess. And what do you possess control over? Do you remember? Your thoughts, your attitude, what you like, what you dislike. That's really all you have control over. You don't have control over traffic or how people treat you. No. So examine it by those rules. This is what Epictetus is saying. And if it relates to anything that is not in your power, it doesn't concern you. You become indifferent. Makes logical sense, right? We have time for another section. Section 2 is very small, I think. He says, remember that desire contains in it the profession or hope of obtaining that which you desire. And the profession of hope and aversion, turning away from a thing, is that you will not fall into that which you attempt to avoid. And he who fails in his desire is unfortunate. And he who falls into that which he would avoid is unhappy. In other words, desire is linked with hope for something, and desire is linked for trying to avoid something. You desire to avoid, you desire to hope. Okay? And when you fall into that trap, and you get what you want, are you truly happy? And if you don't, you're typically unhappy. If you then attempt to avoid only the things contrary to nature which are within your power, you will not be involved in any of the things which you would avoid. But if you attempt to avoid disease or death or poverty, you will be unhappy. Take away then the aversion from all things which are not in our power, and transfer it to the things contrary to nature, which are in our power. But destroy desire completely for the present. For if you desire anything which is not in our power, you must be unfortunate. But of the things in our power, and which it would be good to desire, nothing yet is before you. But employ only the power of moving toward an object and retiring from it. And these powers, indeed, only slightly, and with exceptions, and with remission. So what the hell does that mean? Let me just kind of break it down a little bit. He's saying is if you attempt to avoid only the things contrary to nature which are within your power, you will not be involved in any of the things which you would avoid. So if you're so focused on trying to avoid things that are not in your power, such as sickness, or trying to avoid, people talking about you, your reputation, or even to some degree, how much money you can make. If you're so focused on worrying about the things that you really have no control over, you're taking away an energy away from the things that you can control, which is your attitude, your thoughts, your ability to reason. You understand? That's what he's talking about. So, I think that's enough for today. For those of you who stuck with me during this whole thing, I appreciate it. If you have interest in this, I'm really glad. I know it may not appeal to everyone. My audience isn't necessarily pipe smokers and cigars, but hopefully others who are interested in philosophy and literature and things like that. So anyway, if you stuck with me, I appreciate it. This is segment 1 of this Stoicism series on Epictetus' work complete, and we'll see you for the next one. Smoking Lamp is out.